Only a few places in the world where you can make it as an artist, and New York happens to be one of them. But it's not an easy thing to, as you can imagine. You are an entrepreneur. You have to create your own opportunities. You graduate from art school not knowing anything about the business side of art. And I had to learn all that, the pragmatics of how to make it sustainable. With International Arts Movement, we're really dedicated to helping artists have what they're calling be sustainable. So we have business folks coming in, running workshops. We have conversation about, well, how do you see what you do, no matter what you're doing, as a creative, generative opportunity. And I really believe that if you can look at what you do and what you're called to be as fully human, and how God is behind that, calling us into that reality, we find shalom in that setting. We find thriving of our creative gifts, and our ability to synthesize both the challenges of the broken reality that we have to face, but also creating out of that, in that pulverized remains, being able to think about the future, creating out of our ground zero conditions, and seeing the future as something that our generative creativity can point to and create a path towards. That is a task that every single person can do. And artists are particularly gifted in intuiting that possibility. But I think the problem of 20th century and postmodern art is that that possibility has been kind of left out of the picture. We have chosen not to believe that this art, as all these artists believe, like Van Gogh and Cézanne, and great artists always believed that it was a window into our souls, window into the future, that it generates something in us, triggers something in us that points toward this possibility of a world that ought to be. Culturally, unfortunately, especially in Christian culture, we don't know how to lament. We don't have songs to lament with. We have praise songs, but it doesn't go deep enough. And so as artists, you know, I think we need, and that's not just for the churches, but for the entire culture. That's very important. You know, what we're doing is not just so that the Christian culture can have something useful to use, but it's a way of mediating in culture. And because we are Christians, we have been given this much deeper, truthful way of looking at the world. We don't have to avoid difficult issues because Christ is already there. But we can mediate in general culture how to lead the way into hope, how to lead our way into despair, or way out of despair, perhaps, and to lament what needs to be lamented. And I think that's a real priestly function that artists and musicians and, you know, creative people have always had, but they've never been empowered to do so by institutions and by churches and by general culture. So we don't have these moments, communal moments, where we can truly deal with this deep loss that we are feeling inside. When Jesus talks about look at the lilies of the field, I take that to be a command, because what he says after that is, seek God's kingdom first and his righteousness, and everything will be added unto you. He's talking about us worrying about this and worrying about the future. When he says in a single petal of a flower, a lily that's going to be thrown into the fire the next day, God's future is embedded in that, and we have the capacity to see that and to worship and to love this potential and reality that God gives us. And so it's not, just stopping and smelling the roses. It's an essence of who we are as human beings. And if we are not doing that, then we are walking the path of dehumanization, and we will worry. That's the end result. And so the antidote to worry is not to try to get things done, but actually pay attention. And every single person has a capacity to do that. Now the arts will help you train in this. If you go to a good theater production, you're going to start to learn this language of relationships and dialogue that would help you to attune yourself to a particular minute details of how we relate to each other. It will bring you out of your reality and bring you back in, engage back in. Same thing with art. If you go to see Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night at MoMA, don't just go and say, oh yeah, there it is, and leave. Actually stand in front of it and look at it for some time. It will begin to speak to you. Actually, Vincent van Gogh would be a great person to have quiet times in front of, because he was literally painting visual parables with his paint. And you can learn so much by looking at his work. You would never see the world in the same way after encountering with masterpieces like that. And you go out and you start seeing things in the world, in the skies and in the trees. And that will help us to pay attention to the world around us.